Welcome back. We're still watching Monday Report, and the conversation has been going on here. I'll be sampling some of your questions and views at Citizen TV Kenya. At Sam Gichuku, the hashtag to use is Citizen Monday Report. We've been debating about what IEBC can or not do as currently constituted. I'm just looking at the IEBC Act. It talks about the functions of the Commission, part of them being continuous registration of voters, regular revision of voters' roll, delimitation of constituencies and ward boundaries, settlement of electoral disputes and nominations, registration of candidates for election, voter education itself, and regulation of the amount of money that may be spent by or on behalf of a candidate or party in respect of any election. We should talk about the campaign financing bill that has had the act that has had challenges of implementation since 2017. Also, investigation and prosecution of election-related offences, which I think is one of the functions that may have had some issues with the courts. But Wakili, so Dr. Okot still feels IEBC should go ahead and do what it needs to do. Mm-hmm. With what protection of the law would the Hussein Marjan-led secretariat in executing some of these functions, for instance, voter registration?
That will be problematic. And if that were to happen, certainly questions will be answered in court. Because the functions of the IEBC under Article 88 are protected under Chapter 15. Remember the nature of IEBC as a Chapter 15 commission. It is protected owing to its functional capacity.
Right.
It is also supposed to be protected in terms of its financial capacity. In terms of those protections, it forms part of the column called the fourth branch of government. We want to make them independent from manipulation from any quarter, and particularly from the traditional three branches.
Yep.
And therefore, that commission is independent as structured in Article 88, which means commissioners have to be substantively present and to give directions and guidance to the Secretariat. No other quarter can give that kind of guidance and control. So right. Marjan has to wait for substantive commissioners to be appointed to give direction.
I totally disagree.
Why you disagree?
I disagree because the exercise, Ogada ought to know that human rights are very inherent. Yeah, when they are provided for under the constitution or any law, they do not need to wait for sanctioning from another person. Okay, so if today, let me use the example. Our daughter turned 18 this year. She acquired an identity card, national identity card. So are you telling me, Ogada, today, if my daughter walked into the IEBC office, that she will not be registered? Because there is somebody sitting there registering voters. Yeah? Do you want to tell me that she has to wait for somebody called a commissioner for her to be registered as a voter? That's not what the constitution...
But let me ask you,
yeah.
If she's registered to become a voter,
yeah.
and come the election day, her name is not on the voter's roll, whose responsibility is that? Is it the Secretariat or the Commission?
Is the Commission? Listen, no, listen.
And the Commission, with the Commissioners
Sam,
chair. Yeah.
You know, we have spoken about the principle, the doctrine of necessity. In the absence of these so-called commissioners, Kenyans cannot wait to exercise their rights, i.e., for example, to just register under Article 88.
But who controls that process? Who safeguards that it complies with the Constitution?
The Commission.
Listen, the Commission is the totality of the commissioners on the one hand, and the Secretariat, who are the executing arm of the Commission, based on policy directions. But in terms of, for example, functioning of the Secretariat, of the Commission, it's actually the Secretariat that actually does those functions. And I'm just using a simple example. I want to register. I've turned 18 as a Kenyan today. I want to go and register.
And that's what I'm asking you, Daktari. Who will safeguard the quality, the credibility of that register if you don't have the chairperson and commissioners?
No, once you're registered, you've registered to be a voter, you enter into electoral register. You do not need a commissioner to safeguard it. The register speaks for itself.
Sam, the question I'm asking, listening to what he calls the spirit of the law and the law in writing itself, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Based on this ambiguity that I can hear on this table, my question is, what
ambiguity?
What is hindering?
Response,
I'm hearing a bit of ambiguity from both sides. What is hindering a Kenyan or the system for this, what's happening right now, to take the shortest time possible for the issue to be solved? What is the hindrance between here? What hinders a Kenyan, for example, what's on the table right now? What hinders Kenyans either to go to court and ask for the fastest way possible for this thing to be solved, so that we don't deal with the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, but what hinders this thing to take 2 weeks? What hinders them take 1 week, and then we move on?
That's a very important point, because I think those offices became vacant on the 17th of January 2023, and shortly thereafter, the only... Well, she was not in office, but she had been suspended at that time, Commissioner Masit. Then she was removed by a tribunal. So those offices have been vacant since that time.
Yes.
There was a selection panel, Wakili Ogada, that didn't go the full hog. Now we have names for another one. I mean, where does that even lie in law? Because Justice Mugure Thandi already directed the IEBC to go ahead, I mean, the selection panel to go ahead and conclude the process, despite what was going on. That didn't happen.
It basically points to the cyclical habits of bad manners in this country. Because, for example, some of those political band-aid measures that we've been trying to cobble up are totally unnecessary. Because, for example, due to this paralysis we've had with the IEBC, we already have a problem with boundary delimitation. And back to my good friend and senior's comments on what he calls the doctrine of necessity. The Constitution has an establishment clause for the IEBC, and that is 88.1. The establishment clause is important for this reason. It announces the creation and form of the commission. So it means that you cannot talk of an IEBC being in existence outside the commissioners. And the minimum number the Constitution envisages is 3. So if we don't have the 3 minimum, you can't even argue necessity. Marjan is alive to that, and that's why he's gone for the advisory, because fundamental decisions have to come from the commission and then executed by the secretariat. The question of voter registration, the financing of it, the supervision and execution of it have to be done by the commission. Said that if there is no substantive commissioners in place, and it's not only limited to IEBC, we saw problems with a number of constitutional commissions that had their members appointed the other day, including the CAJ. If that quorum is not met, if substantive commissioners are not there, then you will be doing in constitutional law anality. You will not be respecting Chapter 15, and everything done will amount to anality.
You know what? This is very interesting, listening to Ogada. And I hope he can answer this question. So do we have IEBC or do we not? Do we have an IEBC?
Section 13 of the Act creates a legal entity, a legal character called IEBC.
So do we have IEBC right
It is there, yes.
So do we have a deputy president?
Right now?
Because I'm looking at the memorandum of the President of the Republic of Kenya to Parliament. It is titled Presidential Memorandum of Nomination. Okay? It talks about the nomination of Professor Kindiki Kithure. So if you are saying we don't have an IEBC, then we don't have a Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
I think that's a different question.
No, it's not.
I had actually asked you. I asked you.
It arises. Sam, please just listen to me. It arises from the fact that we have a body that actually legitimates you either as a voter or the implementation of a constitutional right.
A body minus the owner of the house?
Okay, so then,
you see, Doctor, I asked you a question, whether you think CEO Hussein Marjan can actually give feedback on that question from the Office of the President. You said yes and no. So it shows there's a question of context here.
Yes. So I said yes and no because first I acknowledge the fact that yes, we don't have commissioners.
You explained quite clearly, and I think what you're talking about is now how do you cure this problem, because it's been existing for 22 months.
So that's why I go back to the doctrine of necessity, that today, if a Kenyan who turns 18 years old and wants to register to be a voter for purposes of 2027 election, or even just for purposes of Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya, to be registered as a voter.
But Dr.
So you cannot stop them and say...
You also know that as part of the functions of the Commission is to do the boundaries delimitation. If boundaries delimitation is done, you have to do fresh voter registration. So even if IEBC, as currently constituted, were to go through the voter registration of your daughter and others that have turned 18, they would still have to re-register were the new commissioners to come and say, let's proceed on the delimitation. They'll have to.
No, listen.
Because you register fresh under the constituency.
Article 88 is very crystal clear that the registration of voters is continuous process. In fact, you cannot even stop it. You can even register on the day of voting, because it's continuous. So this nonsense of saying that there was suspension, it's a misnomer.
The question...
Yeah, but I'm saying it's a misnomer. If you look at the language in the Constitution, you cannot stop the enjoyment of a constitutional right. It's a continuous process.
So if he talks of continuous, and Senior here is right on the language used, continuous as spearheaded by who? A commission. And the commission represents an authority question, which means this body called the IEBC, established under 88(1), has to perform through a commission at the apex, and the mandate of the commission is carried out by a secretariat. Absent of that commission, there's paralysis. It cannot perform.
Right.
But what I'm wondering...
But ends the question I asked earlier. So now today, it's okay for us to say, oh, we don't have an IEBC commission, but then we have a commission that actually cleared a deputy president.
Sam, these two lawyers...
No, for nomination.
It's a live question.
No, Dr. Okot,
you can't bake your cake and eat it.
I think we've had that question clearly. We don't have a consensus here, but Dr. Kanga, you wanted to say something.
When I'm listening to these two lawyers, is one thing. Is the problem of IEBC in this country, is it a legal issue or a political issue? If it's a legal issue, what is hindering any Kenyan right now to wake up in the morning and go to court and ask as his or her rights that this thing should be should go as fast as possible, that in the next 2 months this thing should be over, if it's just a legal issue? If it's a political issue, then we'll go to morality and all that. But if it's a political issue, then we'll talk about morality and what people think. But if it's a legal issue, then they should not be telling us there's spirit and there is the letter. It's an issue of somebody wake up tomorrow, go to court, and ask the court that can the same court ask the other court to do this in the next 4 weeks, then we go back to normal.
You know, Wakili Ogada...
Is that possible?
Yes.
There's a question there. I'm waiting for your answer.
Yes.
But at the same time, in 2017, the election of 2017, the commissioners came in, the Wafula Chebukati team came in January of that year, just about 7 months to the election. The commission of 2022 election stayed with just 3, inclusive of the chairperson, up until September 2021, meaning the Cherera 4 had just about 11 months before the election.
Yes.
Now here we are, 22 months later, we don't have a commission. We are less than 3 years to the next election. What are the chances that we have a fair exercise that also attracts the confidence of Kenyans, if at this point you're still haggling about who is in the commission or not?
It is a fundamental and fair question because for example, in constituencies that don't have MPs right now, it's really unfair for them to be bogged down in political imbroglio. The IEBC commission ought to have been constituted as of yesterday. It ought not to have taken this long. Because when these constituencies don't have MPs, what you are affecting is CDF, because CDF has some lifeline till early next year in the first quarter, when it ceases to operate as of law. We have several bursaries that are awarded through constituencies who speaks for these constituencies in Parliament, for example. I will be bold enough to ask the question, in the absence of these particular constituencies, how was the impeachment process conducted in Parliament, absent of these critically elected people who represented their voices in the impeachment process? These are fundamental questions and problems related to the stasis we have with the IEBC. Be it as it may, a pastor here has alluded to a very important question generally with IEBC. Yep. The last time, in terms of my memory, when IEBC performed optimally to expectations and when we had order, when we had the duo Kivuitu and Mukele. And when Mukele left, you could see the entropy that visited IEBC. So it's a question of bad manners.
ECK then.
It's a question of bad manners, because we have people who are brought in, have the full confidence of Kenyans, have the full confidence of the law, but they go in there and morph into political players. People who were incoherent, you saw with the debacle that we had in the last election, and led to what we have currently. And if you expect these politicians to solve this for us, in the long haul, they're not interested in solving this.
Dr. Kanga, yes. Similar to that, so the selection panel that is in contest at the moment is the product of a National Dialogue Committee recommendation on how to amend the IEBC Act itself. If you look at the representation, now you have the majority party, minority party represented in the commission, the political parties liaison committee also represented for parties that are non-parliamentary. Now, if it was wrong to have Cherera 4 versus Chebukati 3, what would be right in a selection panel that is formed in the face of the political power sharing in the House at a time NADCO was when there was majority and minority clearly? Today, not as clear.
What you are saying, Sam, is true. The issue is, if this was wrong, then it should be wrong today. If it was right, then it should be right today. But the issue is all going round and round and round and round. That's why I'm asking the question, is it a political issue or it is a legal issue? If it's a legal issue, we need to sit on the table and say it was wrong. That's what I'm saying. Looking at the issue that we have right now, the issue of inclusivity, the issue of the small parties, those are minor issues that should not be fighting, that should make Kenyans suffer, should not make people from Kwesero suffer. Those are minor issues that should not make the issue of CDF get into trouble. Those are issues that people should sit on the table and solve. But when there is a big political issue, what was wrong and what's right now, what was wrong is the mindset, the political mindset, and the mindset today. And the biggest problem where we are as Kenyans is sometimes, instead of going professional and going moral right, we go what our political mindset says.
Okay, let's take a look at the feedback, and then I'll ask Dr. Kurokot to attend some of those questions or comments that are coming at Citizen TV Kenya. Sam Gituku, the hashtag to use is Citizen Monday Report. Crispina Adams, you're saying that why do we need commissioners if the doctrine of necessity can allow the Secretariat to hold elections? Who creates or hires the other between the Secretariat and commissioners? You continue to say, do we need to amend the law to keep the president of the commission so that he is not involved in the appointment and dismissal of the commissioners to increase its independence? For your question, I don't know that Dr. Kotu will take note. Lloyd Onyango, you're saying that IEBC isn't doing continuous voter registration since mid-2022, a process that doesn't require commissioners but only secretariat, yet there are Kenyans who still think we have a competent IEBC to manage our elections. Funny that no MPs talk about it. Nyantika, you're saying that I bet that the sluggish manner in which matters IEBC is concerned is deliberate. Many, if not all, lawmakers are okay with the status quo. Majority fear to be recalled by their constituents, and so is the same with the current regime, thus buying time strategizing for 2027. We'll get to more shortly from now, but Dr. Court, your responses.
Yeah, well, you can see that some of the viewers actually agreeing with me that on the question, for example, of just registration alone, you don't actually need commissioners. You know, and this is really the spirit of the Constitution. Where the letter is not clear, you know, you go to the spirit. You cannot stop the exercise of a constitutional right, such as, for example, just mere registration to be put in the voter electoral register and to be sanctioned by an individual. Actually, commissioners do not sanction the registration of somebody to be a voter. They don't. They don't even sanction you when you make the decision whether I want to vote or not to vote. Because see, the danger, Sam, we are running into is in 2027, what are we looking into going to 2027? You know, there is now, the Gen Z movement is now saying clearly that they are being frustrated from registering, you know, and so we are beginning to see a chaotic political process going towards 2027, because there is a section of the Kenyan society that's being disenfranchised deliberately by the political class, because they are saying, oh, because we don't have commissioners, so we will not register you to be voters to be able to exercise your constitutional right. It's deliberate. And I'm happy bringing in the question of legal versus politics. So why does it take ...2 years to just put together a commission? It is the political class playing this game. You know, this is not a question of...
In the next 2 months, January 2025, we have a new commission. Can they legally, constitutionally review the boundaries?
Well, they can, but I think, you know, the time frame in the Constitution is that after every 12 years, that's what the Constitution says.
The maximum is 12 years.
12 years. Every 12 years, there's supposed to be review of the boundaries. So we don't have a time frame. And I think that's why I like what Dr. Kanga has brought on the table, that is it a legal or political issue? The law is not the problem. The question of interpretation of the law has since gone even to the highest, court in the land, where the court in the land has said, listen, based on the doctrine of necessity, and I will keep on repeating it. You cannot suspend my rights as a Kenyan to, for example, to just register. Just register. I've not even voted.
Even though you might need a constitutional body to do that.
But we have a constitutional body
that is properly constituted.
No? Sam, I don't know.
No, it's a question. I mean, it's okay, but I see your reaction.
Yes.
Wakili Ogada,
we have a constitutional body called the IEBC under Chapter 15 of the Constitution. And I think Wakili Ogada has actually ably spoken to that. Okay? All I'm saying is, let's now be practical. Let's now look at the realpolitik. So we have the political class that's actually frustrating the formation or the constitution or reconstitution of the IEBC in terms of the commissioners. But we have a secretariat that's actually executing functions of the commission under the Constitution, i.e., for example, the day-to-day. So are we now saying that, Sam, all the offices of the IEBC in the 47 counties of Kenya have collapsed? No. I know there are directors in all these county offices. They are functioning.
Okay. So day-to-day operations is the word used in the law. But Wakili Ogada, help me here, because the cap is 8 to 12 years. The current boundaries were gazetted in March 2012. 8 years was up to 2020 March. The 12-year mark is March 2024. If you have a new commission, what does it do to legally review boundaries, knowing that it's outside the window?
It cannot, because the Constitution has capped it to a maximum threshold of 12 years. So it means unless the courts innovatively extend this period, the 12-year period stands. What does that mean? We have certain constituencies currently that are tenuously anchored in law. We have constituencies like Kandara and about 10 other constituencies, which will automatically cease to exist in the next election.
Yep.
I don't know what that will do in terms of the politics of this country. It's going to raise fundamental questions. The Constitution envisages that we have a pro-rata equality basis of delimitation of constituencies. We have constituencies like North Horr, which are too big and people have been clamoring for the split. What happens to us in the next election when North Horr goes to the next election? So we are going to have a perfect storm, but it only shows you how we don't think, we don't plan. The foresight in this country is always lacking. People think in terms of expedient things. What can I do for quick wins?
Right.
Because the time wasted in NADCO should have been invested in sorting out IEBC, and we will have probably met the boundary delimitation period by March.
What is surprising me, Sam,
yes, Dr.
is that as organization, as NCCK, we have called upon the formation of IEBC for the last 2 years. In every meeting, we have come and issued a statement this year, please formulate IEBC. But now they are telling me it's not a political issue, it's a legal issue.
IEBC is there, just we don't have the commissioners.
I mean, Dr. Okot, I think we understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, but let's communicate it correctly.
Okay.
Let's not say we don't have an IEBC.
I'm sure you understand what he's saying.
No, but let's not mislead the Kenyans.
We don't have commissioners.
Yes.
And we have a house without a father and a mother.
Yes.
They are children who cannot do anything. Now, we have called upon this house to be formed. Up to now, that house has not been formed. And now we are in a crisis. What do we do? The only thing we can do is we look for ways and means to make sure that this works between now and the next 2 weeks so that we can be there. One way is for people of Ichara, Huisero, to come up tomorrow with another case so that they can hire him to make sure that these issues discussed on the table, to go to court, to force them to formulate this thing tomorrow.
I have a question for Kanga.
No, but before you ask the question...
No, I have a question. Let me...
Sorry, Dr. Okot.
Please allow me
to... Note it down. I can give you a piece of paper and a pen. But before you do that, because I'll give it that opportunity, look, the current constituencies are founded on the census of 2009.
Yes. Yeah.
We have another census which is
2019.
5 years old, of 2019. Yeah. It has not been used to delimit these constituencies. We must, if the boundaries are to be used in the 2027 election, they must be ready by August 2026. They must be gazetted by that date.
Yes.
Is it even practical that the Commission comes in and is able to do all that work and gazette them by August 2026, failing which we continue to use 2009 census up to maybe 2027 election?
You know, first of all, the question you're raising, Sam, is very fundamental to the extent that actually we have got a failed system. We have got a political system that actually so lackluster, feckless, it's not bothered about progressing this country forward. Why would we still be talking about census of 2009 with all this? And, you know, to Daktari's, concern, you want to tell me today, if I'm a milk farmer, I cannot sell my milk to KCC because that there is no board of governors, board of directors.
But KCC is not a constitutional body.
No, seriously. I mean, just by metaphorically.
It's wrong.
Metaphorically.
Maybe it's Parliamentary Service Commission.
No.
Or maybe cabinet. Can you take a bill to Parliament without a cabinet?
Yes, you can.
No.
You can petition it.
A government bill?
Not a government. Yeah, a government bill, yes. But as a private citizen, I can. It still doesn't stop me from approaching Parliament.
Who will work on it?
I can do that. But listen, guys,
Yep.
Let's be very practical here. Maybe the question, I think we are being academic in this conversation because of the absence of commissioners. Now, let's be practical. Where actually is the problem? The problem for me seems to be in the people who are actually holding duties to the appointment of commissioners. And why are they doing that? It's deliberate for purposes of manipulating the 2027 election. Okay? And we can already see what is building up going to 2027 election.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the deliberate efforts by people in charge, people in power, who do not want to properly constitute to ensure that these bodies actually are fully functional. So they're deliberately creating dysfunctional institutions. And that's why we are here academically. This is scholarship conversation. This is academic. You
see, in the process of recruiting new commissioners, the selection panel invites applications. Applications are considered. A shortlist is created. Interviews are held. The selection panel recommends names to the president for appointment. So who is frustrating this process?
So let's do the reverse gear. Who appoints the selection panel?
Well, different bodies nominate. Then names are forwarded to the president for appointment.
So there has to be deliberate efforts from, for example, the executive, i.e. the president, to say, okay, we need this institutional functional. This institution called the IEBC. Today, there is deliberate efforts to make sure that IEBC is dysfunctional. Okay? We have got about 4 million, I think 4 million Kenyans annually who turn 18 every year, I think. These people need to be put in the electoral register. So why isn't the executive ensuring that is happening? They are doing it deliberately by frustrating the appointment of the commissioners. Because the intention, in my view, is that let's delay this process until we appoint stooges towards 2027 general election, so that we can control the outcome of the election. But in the process, they have actually disenfranchised. Do the maths. Today, 2022, 2024, 4 million, 2025, another 4 million. There's like almost 8 million Kenyans who are not being put in the register. Why? Because we are buying into this nonsense of saying that because we do not have commissioners, we do not have an IEBC.
I think the more accurate estimate is about 1 million turning 18 every year, if you had to look at the transition even from our schooling system. I want us to close. And Wakili, do you agree that the appointment or recruitment process of selection panel is the one that is being frustrated with interest in 2027?
Well, he's a party leader. Probably he has his good sources to say what he says. From me, as a teacher of law, as a simple Kenyan observing from the side, there's concern because particularly for those constituencies that face being phased out before the next election, how will these people reconcile themselves to the non-existence of their constituencies? And ours is a question of bad manners, because look at India. India has, is it one or very few commissioners who... Four. Persons who are not on permanent basis, and India organizes the largest democratic org. Germany has one commissioner who acts on a part-time basis and on ad hoc purposes, only for the purposes of the election. It simply tells us as Kenyans that we are the cradle of bad manners. We have an elaborate constitution that people don't want to materialize and come to fruition. We need to change how we behave, because the evidence is out there. We have dropped from the lead nation in East Africa. Tanzania has beaten us. We are falling behind just because of lack of thought. We are behaving as if we cannot think. We have to do things differently.
Lack of thought. Your final word, Dr. Kanga?
We are in a vacuum, but we must end this vacuum. Number one, we must get this education, civic education, to people to know their rights, what they need to do between now onwards, so that they can take their place in the community and ask what are their rights. And then we need to stop this issue of blame shifting. If it's a legal issue, then the legal community need to come up immediately and resolve this issue legally, so that we can register our people, get IEBC in place, and then make sure that we are safe. We don't fight after 2027 again. What we are right now, we are trying to organize ourselves like what happened 2008. This is where we are heading now, because as we continue blaming one another, this thing will come up and it will get up with us before we get to next election, and it'll be again another drama. So we need to turn quickly, get our rights, and just get IEBC in place.
Okay, all right. I have to thank you, all of you, for making time for us.
You didn't want to give me a right to make my
You're actually the first one.
Well, no, I didn't.
you didn't know that we are closing the tour.
Yeah.
The feedback that has come to us, the final feedback that I want us to look at is from, what's the name? This is Jermaine. You're saying, is the panel telling us that due to the absence of IEBC commissioners, we have ghost workers earning salaries in the name of IEBC executive who should be sued for this anomaly? That's Jermaine wondering. Do you want to respond to that, Dr. Okot?
Well, you see, again, the answer to the bigger question that I raised, that the fact that we cannot be entertained to this idea that we do not have an IEBC. There is an IEBC. We don't have commissioners. But I think the bigger question for me is that who is actually frustrating the appointment of these commissioners? It's, for me, the political class, and particularly the executive. And it's actually putting us in a dangerous roadmap towards 2027, where today, I mean, we are seeing a lot of tribal mobilization and whatever. So I think then if you don't have an IEBC, then why are we expending money on people sitting in offices? Why do we have 47 offices of IEBC? Why are taxpayers paying? So if we buy into it, because I want to persuade you that we have an IEBC in place.
Okay. You know, Dr. Okot, only one person in the executive has any role in appointment of IEBC commissioners. Only one. I don't know, you're talking about the executive.
President William Ruto.
Now,
if that's what you wanted me to say.
I didn't want you to.
No,
I'm just wondering because you're blanketing it. Now, it's the constituency.
No, but also Sam.
Yeah. Why
is in the political class, for example, the representatives of the people, why are they not talking about the importance of this institution? This is a Chapter 15 commission. Very important in the management of our democratic electoral processes.
Yeah.
It should really be a concern to all elected officials.
Let's close it at that. Now, Ugunja constituency has been without a member of parliament for 118 days.
Can you imagine?
The law only talks about 21 plus 90. Banisa constituency, Mandera County, has been without a member of parliament for 616 days.
Oh my God.
Magarini constituency has been without a representative for 186 days. ODM has been without a special interest representative for 118 days. The Constitution talks about 21 plus 21, which is 42 days maximum. Now, the High Court recently said that the Constitution does not foresee a situation where the office of the Deputy President would be vacant. I don't know what the court would say about Banisa constituency. Now, voter registration is a right. In the past, you've seen commissioners going to the National Assembly to defend budgets of the IEBC. You just wonder who would defend those budgets today. Thank you so much, Ivan Sugada Wakili, Dr. Alphonse Kanga from the NCCK Nairobi region, Dr. Ekuru Okot, Party Leader, Third Way Alliance, for making time for us for this conversation.
Thanks.
We hope you're more informed and action will be taken sooner rather than later. My name is Sam Gichuku. Have a good night. See you again soon.